If you want to start trading like a pro on TradingView, then you need to know how to use it properly. But here's the thing, most people don't know about many of the hidden features that will make your process drastically better that took me absolutely years to find. So I'm going to show you my exact daily trading process with these hidden features. And if you set your charts up just like this, I guarantee your results will improve. And I know this because I've been using TradingView for almost a decade now, and you're about to get all of my tips and tricks that will set you up for success. I'm going to show you how to set up your charts from a brand new account, the best layouts, color themes, my advanced customization settings to remove the noise that you don't need, an overview of all of the key features, and a full breakdown of all of the tools, indicators, and keyboard shortcuts that I use to trade every day. And if you stick around until the end, I will show you a full breakdown of exactly how I use TradingView to trade every day. After watching this, I guarantee that you will boost your trading results from your improved workflow on TradingView. Alrighty, now I'm going to assume that the fact that you bothered to go onto YouTube and search for a TradingView tutorial means that you already have set up an account or you're smart enough to know how to open an account, right? It's the same for any other piece of software. So log in, create a free account. In terms of the pay plans, they explain it better than I'm going to explain it on their website. If you're taking your trading serious, you want to do this as a career, you're probably going to need to at least get their essential plan, okay? Because it's going to give you features that are very useful, particularly multi-screen layout, having multiple charts, and using bar replay to help with your backtesting. Quick tip, every Black Friday every year they do about a 70% discount, so it can be worth waiting until then to buy a premium annual subscription. Now, once you are all set up and you're looking at this page, you can basically ignore all of these bells and whistles. Everything you need that's worth using will be accessible from Supercharts, okay? Now, before you go into there, what I want you to do is go to More, go down to Downloads and download the desktop app, as it's going to be a lot more just functional and reliable compared to the web browser. Okay, so when you open the Supercharts up on a desktop app, it's going to look something like this. Of course, your charts probably look a little bit different, but I'm going to show you how to set yours up just like mine, okay? Now, the first thing to realize is that this entire workspace is essentially one chart layout. So the first thing I want you to do is go up to the top right-hand corner, click that arrow and save this or name it as whatever chart layout you want, and then make sure that the auto save feature is turned on, because that way whenever you're changing your settings, doing your analysis, etc., it will continuously save that for you. What I typically like to do is have each layout saved for each instrument that I trade, and then I have those individual instruments as separate tabs along the top. But I'll go through way more in depth into my daily trading workflow towards the end of this video if you stick around. So let's do an overview of all of the features. So if we look at the top left-hand side, this is where we have the symbol search, and this is where you can filter all of the instruments available in TradingView via the different markets here. So we've got stocks, funds, futures, Forex, etc. I'm trading Forex, so let's go in here and let's say we are looking for pound US dollar, okay, and here you have all of the different data feeds, and you can see the brokers here on the right hand side. So just pick whatever broker you use or whatever reliable data feed you use. I typically use forex.com as that tends to be pretty reliable. Another way that you can access symbols pretty quickly is if you're on the charts and you literally just start typing the letters of the symbol you want, for instance euro dollar, and then you can click on it right there. Next, we have timeframes, okay? So if you click on the arrow down, you'll have all of these timeframes here. I have a lot of timeframes available to me because I'm on the premium plan. I think this will differ depending on what plan you have. Now what you want to do is go in here and add favorites. Click on this star sign between the timeframes that you typically will use in your strategy and your analysis. So I have these saved along at the top, and I can quickly click on them to switch between timeframes. So for instance, this is the 4-hour chart. Therefore, each of these candles will represent 4 hours worth of price data. Again, similar to the symbol search, if you just type in a time frame on here, so 4H, it will change the 4-hour chart. Obviously I'm already on that, but if I want to go down to say the 60-minute time frame, I can just type in 60 and it'll go to there, or you can just do 1H, it's up to you. It's pretty self-intuitive like that. Next we have the price type. So I'm already on candles, Japanese candlesticks. If you don't know what those are, I have a 3-hour beginner trading course completely free on YouTube on my channel, so check that out. Otherwise, you've got all of the standard types. They even have volume ones for those of you who use that in your analysis. Next along, we have indicators. This is the panel where you can add those. I'm going to go through all of the indicators, how to customize them and how to set them up, and the ones that I use and how I use them in my trading later on, so stick around. Next, we have price alerts, okay? So this is where you can obviously set an alert when price reaches a specific level. So the way that I typically use that in my trading is I'll identify a level, say over here, and I'll go over to this plus icon on the right hand side, and I'll simply add that alert there. And then it's done. Now, if you want to adjust that alert, double click on the line, or you can right click on it, and that will open up the settings. And this is where you can change, how you want the alert to go off, whether you want price to cross down through it. It's all there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Again, play around with that. You can put in, when that alert will expire. And then this can be quite useful is if you change the message. So what I would do here is if you download the TradingView app to your mobile, let's say you're out and about and you want to monitor markets, and you might have set a number of alerts, and then it just goes off on your phone, $1 alert. You might not necessarily know what that was for. So if you put in there, that it's crossed a key certain level that you're interested in, say the previous day's high, or maybe it's hit one of your profit target levels, you can write that, and then you'll know straight away why that alert has gone off. Now, to organize your alerts, if you click over here on the right hand side, this is where you'll have all of the alerts that are both active and the ones that have already been triggered. Every so often you want to go in and tidy this up by clicking on the 3 dots, and I just delete all of the ones that are inactive because they're all of my old alerts. And that's how you can kind of keep on top of that and keep it pretty neat. So let's talk about chart settings at the minute. How can you customize these? Well, first I would recommend you go up to your profile on the top left-hand side, go down to app settings, and then here, this is where you can flick between light and dark mode. I'm a bit weird in that I like to have it on dark mode so that the outer border is dark, but then I like to have my background on my charts as bright and white, because as you can see, I trade here in my living room, big windows. It's usually very bright in here. Well, not when it's an English winter, it's kind of overcast at the moment, but for the most part, it can get pretty bright. So I like to have white charts just to keep things clear. But of course, have dark, whatever you prefer. It's probably a bit nice on your eyes. And also flick to a dark chart in the evening. But anyway, that's how I have it. Then where you can either go up to the settings icon in the top right hand side, or if you just right click on the chart and go to settings here, it will bring you to this same panel. So let's run through these settings. So the first settings in symbol is essentially going to be your candlesticks here. You can copy my settings here. Essentially, you just want to have all your bullish candles, the colors that you want, all of your bearish candles on the right hand side. I'm not going to give away the exact color codes of my charts. It seems to be really highly requested. I'm not too sure why, but yeah, I just don't want everyone's charts looking exactly like mine. So yeah, you can figure that out, and then just have your time zone to whatever time zone obviously you're in. Another quick way you can access that is on the bottom right hand side here to see the time zone there. The status tab, this is essentially everything that you see here on the top left hand side of your chart. I pretty much have nearly all of it showing, particularly the chart value. So this will be, you see me toggling it on and off there, the open, high, low and close of each candle. The reason why I like to get the exact numbers there, so the way this works is if you hover your mouse over the candle that you're looking at in question, it will show the data up here. So yeah, the reason why I like that is because I need to be very precise at times to see if a high or low has actually been broken. And sometimes TradingView can be a little bit buggy where visually it looks like price has actually broken, say for instance, a high, but then when I check the actual high data up here, it hasn't done so. So I trust these numbers up there because that's the actual data rather than sometimes how it visually looks like on the chart. So just something to bear in mind there. And then of course here as well, if you have any indicators, this will show more information here when we expand these, but I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Scales and lines, you don't really need to play around with this too much. You can copy my settings here if you want. It's a little bit of preference, but nothing really that important. Canvas, so this is where obviously we have the background. I prefer to just have it completely white. Grid lines, for me, they just get in the way. I don't like it, so I move both of the green lines opacity down to 0, just so it can keep my charts nice and clear. Next, we have the crosshair. Again, pretty simple, just play around with the settings that you like. For the watermark, this will essentially put the symbol name and the time frame on the middle of your chart, which I just find really annoying. Doesn't help me at all and just gets in the way of me looking at price action. So I have that completely turned off. And then again, these are just pretty self-explanatory. With the navigation, this can help, particularly if you're new to the platform, having it always visible. So you can have these buttons down here, or you can have it so it only appears when your mouse gets there. I prefer to just not have it there because I will show you some tips in a minute on how to navigate using your keyboard and your mouse. Last tip here that some of you might not really realize about is the margin. So where it says right, and I have 60 bars, what that essentially does, if I just get rid of this for a minute, is when I reset my chart, it will load the first candle with a bit of a gap, right? So you see how it has this gap here? I prefer that to happen. Rather than sometimes you can reset the chart and you have it all the way over here. I don't like that because I need to kind of visually be able to have that space to kind of visualize where price is going to go. Then it's a bit weird to explain. Maybe you kind of more experienced traders get that too. So yeah, when I reset the chart, I prefer to have that gap. rather than me having to manually move it every time. So yeah, just play around with that. I have that around 60 bars. Next, we have the trading panel, and this is where once you connect your broker, you can directly place your trade orders through TradingView. I don't like to use this. I like to keep my actual execution separate from TradingView, but if you do want to use it, I'll show you a bit more about this in a bit. But these are the settings where you can add these buy and sell and show the orders, etc., appearing on your charts. So play around with that. Again, it's all pretty self-explanatory. Alerts we've just gone through. This will essentially show the alert line across the whole chart. I don't actually like that, so I usually have that turned off. And then automatically hiding toasts. I don't know why it's called toast. I've never heard of that before, but I'm pretty sure that's just when your alert goes off, a little notification will appear in the bottom left-hand corner. And what this will do is, I believe it will just disappear after a few seconds, so it doesn't stay in your charts. But if you want to keep your alerts there, maybe you've walked away for a bit, right? And you want to come back to your desk and see which ones have gone off, then obviously untick that so they will stay appeared. And last but not least, we have events. I just use the economic events. So as you can see, I only want to see the future news events that are coming up, and I can see these down here in the bottom right hand corner. If you click on those, it will show the relevant economic fundamental news events for the instrument that you are trading. But to be honest, I personally don't even really look at those. I prefer to use the Forex Factory calendar, which is on a different website, but this can be pretty useful. Now, really important before you kind of click away from this, make sure that you save this as a template once you are happy with your settings. So for instance, if you're saving down a white layout, you can have that there, and then you can flick between these different layouts. So for instance, when it gets to the evening and maybe you want your charts to be dark mode, if you just right click, go down to chart template, and you can have all of these saved. For instance, here's an old black layout, and you can flick between those all really easily. Okay, chart navigation can seem a bit simple, but some people actually miss a few of these tips. So easiest way to scroll back and forward on the chart is to click the mouse and drag like this, and you can go back and forward. I would highly recommend getting yourself a Magic Mouse if you are with Apple and you have a Mac, because you can just swipe this like a trackpad, and I continuously use this to go through price action, particularly when I want to have a look at some old historical price action. It's really useful. And then of course, just mouse scrolling in and out, you can zoom in and out of price action, which again, those two actions combined is really useful to quickly navigate your way around the charts. Another quick tip is when you are scrolling up and down the mouse wheel, if you want to actually zoom into a very specific point, hold down Control or Command if you're on a Mac, and it will zoom in then as you scroll into that specific point. So yeah, another little tip there. Now let's say sometimes you've been messing around and scrolling about, and sometimes your chart can look a little bit out of whack. There's two really quick ways to reset the chart. The way that I do it is I press Alt and R on my keyboard to reset the chart. Or another way, if you kind of a bit too zoomed out, is if you double click over here on the margins, okay? So double click that right hand side, and then you'll have to double click the bottom hand side again to do the X and Y axis there. Now that brings us on nicely to split screen layout. So I prefer to use multi-charts. I do believe you will need at least one of the paid plans to be able to access these. And obviously the more split charts you want, the higher the cost you will need to pay. I generally use a 4 or 5 chart layout. Less is more, but again, it entirely depends on your strategy, what timeframes you use, or if you're someone who just wants to have a wider view of the market, maybe you're monitoring lots of different instruments on one chart, then of course you can use these. So let's talk through these settings. So invariably, this is more like how I personally have my chart layout, and it will be the same instrument, so the same symbol on every single chart, but I like to have a different time frame on each chart. So therefore I can use my multi-time frame analysis and have that kind of full overview of the market on that one instrument. So for me, my settings, if you click on there and look down here, is I only have these two turned on. So I want to have the same symbol in every chart, and I want the crosshair to apply across all of them, okay? The reason why you might want to have symbol turned off is for some of you who want to have different symbols if you monitor different markets or different instruments, right? You can have euro dollar on the left, pound dollar on the right, etc., etc. The next one is intervals. So of course, this is if you want the same interval on every chart. Again, that would be useful if perhaps you are monitoring different instruments across the different layouts, but you want to see all of them on the same time frame. So here we can see it's all euro dollar and they're all on the 1 hour chart. But if you have the symbol turned off, then again, you can have different asset classes, but all showing the 1 hour time frame there. Now, the time and date range, I really don't like these. I don't find them useful. When you turn them on, especially date range, it can be a little bit buggy, but essentially it will be if you go back to a specific point in time and then you click, the rest of the chart should jump and sync up with that. The time one can maybe be a little bit useful when you're going back through historical price action, but I find if you play around with the date range one, for me, it's just very, very buggy. I don't really like it personally. But yeah, play around with those. And if you want to copy my settings, I just have symbol and crosshair turned on in order to benefit from a multi-time frame view of one single instrument at a time, just like this. Now, a quick tip to kind of navigate these. Let's say you want to full screen one of the charts, which I often do, say here, the M15 chart. The slow way is you click on the chart and then you go down to the bottom right-hand corner and you maximize the chart like that. The quicker way is if you hold down Alt or Option for Mac and you click on the screen, it will, every time you click, it will either full screen it or minimize it back down there. So for instance, if I want to open the 1 hour chart, I hold down Alt and click on that chart there, which makes it really easy. Once you are full screen on one of those charts, but you want to cycle through them full screen, if you just hit tab, you see how now it's changed to the M15, press it again, then the M5, press it again, then the daily chart. So that's a quick way you can cycle through all of those with just your keyboard. Okay, next we have watch lists. So if you go over to the right hand side, this is where you can add all of the symbols or tickers, if you want to call them that, to your watch list panel over here. Okay, so the easiest way to do that when you're starting out is to click the plus icon and then search for all of the instruments that you want to add. So for instance, let's say I want to add USD yen from a specific broker. I'll search it in. I want to add that capital.com one. I'll click the plus sign, right? And you can just add or delete as many as you want, all from this window without having to kind of open it back and forth. So that could be pretty useful. Once you've done that, if you want to add nice sections like this to help organize it, if you right click on one of the tickers and then click add section, you can then have a new section, double click on that to rename it and call it whatever you want. Of course, how you want to organize that is going to be entirely dependent on your approach. I kind of have it here through different asset classes. You could do it by the different strategies or entry models that you have. You know, the world is your oyster, but it's a really easy way to organize it. And of course, you can minimize that too. Another thing that I used to use when I used to trade a lot more instruments, but I don't anymore, is the flagging system. Okay, so you can add a flag beside certain tickers. So I used to use a bit of a traffic light system, obviously red, amber, and green, depending on how near I thought that instrument was potentially going to be ready for an entry, and that way I could quickly kind of keep an eye or organizing my watch list like that. As always, make sure you save your watch list when you've done that, and then you can load different watch lists here that you have saved depending on how you've organized that. Alrighty, let's talk about the tools that we can use in TradingView for our analysis. Now, what tools you want to use and what you're interested in and what the best tools are is entirely dependent on what type of strategy you trade, what type of analysis you use, right? So what I'm going to do for this to be useful for the maximum number of people is talk through how you find those tools, how you customize them, because it's the same process for every tool, but I'm going to show you some tips around how I think these are best used, and then I will show you the exact tools that I use and how I use them to execute trades in the market. So over here on the left hand side, this is where you are going to find all of your different tools on this panel. And yeah, they're all kind of organized pretty well by TradingView, but if you ever want to kind of find it quickly, if you go over here to the top right hand side into the quick search function and you can type in whatever you're looking for. Let's say you want to draw a trend line, obviously type in trend, and there you go, and now you have it. Okay, so what I would recommend doing is finding the common tools that you want to use, and then like a lot of the functions in TradingView, if you add them to your favorites, that will then create a favorite toolbar here for you where you can easily access them without having to use this full menu every time. Now, if you can't find this toolbar, go down to the bottom left-hand side where that star is and make sure that is turned on so that you can see the toolbar here, okay? So what are the main tools that I use to help me execute trades in the market? Well, the main and first one is the info line tool. I don't really know why I'm using that. You can literally just use a trend line. It will do the exact same thing, but pick whichever one you prefer. Now, once you have the tool selected that you want to use, obviously it's a line, so I have to draw 2 points. So click, and that will draw the line for you. Now, in any tool that you draw, this will then show this settings toolbar here. So essentially this will allow you to access some quick things that are customizable, such as the color, the thickness of the line, the style of the line. Of course, it will depend on what tool you've drawn. But what you want to usually do is go to the settings here to open up the full settings, okay? Or you can just, what I usually do is once I've drawn something, I just double click on the drawing and then it will open the settings here. So every setting of every tool will have these same 4 tabs. The first will be the style, and this again where you can just have full customization on exactly how that tool looks. looks. Then you can usually add text to this, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. Coordinates, again, this is if you just want to be a bit more specific, or what I often do is if I've got these drawn on specific highs and I want to note that high, I'll double click on it and I'll save down those coordinates to know what I'm looking for that particular price level. And then visibility, this is really key on how to organize your charts and keep them really, really clean when you are using multi-time frame analysis, right? Because if I'm on the M15 or the M5 or whatever, and I'm doing loads of drawings and drawing tools everywhere, but then if I go up to the daily chart is just going to look like a mess, right? There's going to be all these tools in the way. So what you want to do with all of your tools is right click on them and then go to the visibility on intervals and click current interval and below. Because what that will do is it will mean that this drawing, this tool will only appear on this time frame and lower. Okay, and again, the reason why I want this is I don't want the M15 analysis appearing on the higher time frames because it will just be way too messy. So that's the quickest way to do it. Otherwise, what you can do is if you go to the visibility settings here and you can be really specific for where it appears. So again, my advice is have all of your drawings appear on that same time frame that you want and lower, or you could of course just have it on the time frame and nothing else. So how do I specifically use this tool within my trading? Well, I use it to mark out market structure. So the first main way is drawing on where we have a break of structure, a boss. So because this is the M15 chart, I will click on my line tool to draw this, okay, and I'll draw it from the low to where that low is broken. But then when the settings bar appears here, if you click on this first button, this will generate all of your saved templates. And I have a saved template for the M15 break of structure, which I can click on here. That then makes a navy solid line. And my brain visually knows straight away that that is an M15 boss without me ever having to look up and see what time frame I'm on, because those are the consistent settings that I use within my analysis. The next thing I will then do is I want to mark out the current range that we're within, okay? So where is my swing high and where is my swing low? So a quick tip here is if you hold down Control or Command on your keyboard and then click on a drawing, it will duplicate it just like that. So then I'll draw it from my high to the right. And again, another quick tip is when you're drawing a tool like this, if you hold down Shift, it will perfectly draw a straight line for you. Now again, I've saved another template for this. So I want that to be my M15 swing high, which is my strong swing high. It's a strong high because it broke structure. Okay, this high led to that break of structure. So when price pulls back up to it, we expect that high to hold, and then we expect price to go where? To form the next bearish swing leg towards this weak low. This is a weak low because it didn't break the high, right? So this whole time when price is in there, again, I'll hold down Control to duplicate that line and drag it across, and then I have another template for this. This is my weak swing low, okay? So now how do you see you can have these really powerful templates with pre-saved templates where you've added text in there. I'll show you. You can have that appear however you want, and it really helps you to keep your analysis nice and clear in the market. And I have different templates for every time frames, so that again, remember, I only want this to appear on the M15 and below, and that's why the visibility settings are saved in that way. If I go up to the 4-hour chart, they're not going to show there. The next thing I like to do with market structure is draw pretty little circles on my swing highs and lows. So if you go over to the icon section, annoyingly TradingView don't let you favorite these, so I have to always go over here, and then you can click on the high like that, and then again I have templates for my M15 swing high. Now I literally only recently found out that instead of me having to keep going over here, clicking it to then draw it on every single high low and then have to go back, if you go down here and you click on stay in drawing mode, then once you have a drawing tool that you're selected, you can just keep clicking and it will keep appearing. So yeah, that made me feel like an absolute noob. All of the years I've been wasting having to go back and draw it that way. But yeah, that's pretty useful. Okay, the other tip that I didn't talk about is magnet mode. So you see here when I was drawing this line towards this low, as I get near it, see how it snaps on? That's really useful, so we can get the highs and lows drawn really accurately. So I definitely recommend having that on, and you can make it weaker or stronger. Sometimes when you are drawing tools, you don't actually want the tool to snap to the nearest highs and lows. So what you can do is if you hold down Command, so once you have a tool selected, if you look at the magnet, if I press Command on and off, you see how it toggles, and that way you can temporarily disable or turn on the magnet mode if you want that. Here, this will lock any of the drawing tools just to make sure you can't accidentally delete them. I never really use that. This tool here is actually quite useful. So when you have a lot of analysis drawn on and potentially you're about to take a trade, I will often click this button, and what it will do is temporarily hide all of my drawings, and it helps me to then keep a neutral mindset as I can kind of analyze price and see, is this actually, how I'm viewing things? Because sometimes when you have all of your analysis drawn on for a while, you can kind of get attached to one bias. So that's a pretty useful tool that I find can really help to potentially see the other side of the market that I might be blinded to. Now, the other main way in which I use this tool is actually to mark out my liquidity points, okay? So as price is pulling up and towards this swing high, what we typically want to see when this high is holding and that this pullback might end is we want to see liquidity get taken. So here we have this double top forming, and that generates buy side liquidity above these highs, where people who are buying the breakout of this level or who are short, they put their stop losses behind here. What that does is it generates a lot of buy side liquidity. And this, in theory, is what institutions or big players can use to fill their sell orders, right, in order to facilitate that next movement to the downside. If you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, again, watch that free trading course on my channel that breaks this down in depth, or the liquidity concepts video, okay? So the way I like to mark that is M15 liquidity, draw it from across those highs, and we can see that liquidity has now been taken right behind these equal highs. Then the next key part of my analysis is identifying supply and demand zones. Very simply, I use the rectangle function for this. Again, we're on the M15 chart, so you've guessed it. Let's find my M15 template for that. I use, as you've seen, blue for this time frame. So we can see that price comes into demand, right? It fills up those orders, it has a reaction, but demand fails to put in a higher high. And what happens is that supply comes into the market and we get sellers stepping in and pushing price down. So now we can see that we have, again, if I hold down Control Command, we have a demand to supply flip, right? From the low of the reaction to the top of the reaction. And that basically signals to us where sellers have stepped into the market, right? They came in, overpowered demand. And this is where we can look for unfilled orders within here to trade that next movement to the downside, okay? And again, this is where I can mark on our M15 shock, which is essentially an aggressive way of saying how market structure has shifted in line with that. So then this is a trade idea that we lined up and a trade idea that I actually caught. And this is where you want your position tools, which you can find over here. And this is how you frame your trade ideas. So for instance, I want to get short and I want to sell. I have my sell limit order on the low of that range, stop loss safely behind that high there. And this is where we look for price to come in, tag me in, and then move down towards our profit target, okay? So the start of this tool is where you enter. This represents your risk, your stop loss, and then risk represents where you're targeting. This is your profit target. This is the colors that I have. If you look at the default one, we apply the default settings. This is what TradingView will show you. I would highly recommend adjusting these to more neutral colors, okay? Red and green, they are deliberately designed to invoke fear and greed. That's why casinos use them a lot, and gambling websites. So I definitely recommend changing those to more neutral colors for sure. And again, you can play around with all of the settings within here to change that and save that down, okay? Within the style settings, I prefer to have compact stats mode just to reduce some of the additional text there, which I find unnecessary. But yeah, this was a tidy trade that I caught. Really simple analysis. Hopefully you can now see that you don't need tons of bells and whistles, loads of analysis on your charts, just a few simple geometric shapes, some horizontal lines, if you understand the true underlying market dynamics of how price truly moves. Then a few other key tools that I use is simply to help me with my sharing my analysis and for my own journaling and markups. And I like to use the call out function, okay, so you can find that over here. And this will just allow me to annotate specific areas of the chart, and I can type in, whatever I want, pretty self-explanatory. And again, I use the brush tool, but that's primarily for teaching our private members to annotate what I'm looking for. Likewise, we can use this very often to kind of draw the theory of what we look for with specific elements of our strategy. And it can kind of help you, a lot of our members use this before their session to sketch out the potential scenarios that they are prepared to wait for and what they will need to see if each scenario happens. So that can be a bit useful. And then last but not least, a little tip here is using vertical lines. So what I like to do is for each trading day is I will put a vertical line at the time, obviously ahead of time, right, of when there is a major news announcement that I do not want to trade through. So I'll use a red line, and you can put on text, like say you've got, US CPI, potentially it was at 130. Okay, and then that would be there if I could type it correctly. And then that way I know, if this was obviously the live market, as price is getting nearer to that level, comes into my profit target, high impact news is coming out, probably not going to want to hold that through that, I can exit the position. So that's a really easy way to keep ahead of high risk events. Now, I've already given you kind of a lot of the key tips of the keyboard shortcuts that I use every day, but if you want to find out a few more of those, go again up to the top left-hand side to your profile, down to keyboard shortcuts here, and just have a full look of all of the ones that you tend to use. I don't use all of them, I don't remember all of them, but if you know there's a few certain actions that you do a lot, like for instance, you can find out that you draw your supply and demand zones with rectangles a lot, go down here and you can see that there is a keyboard shortcut to do that, so you don't have to keep doing, dragging all the way over to there, even though it takes a few seconds. Indicators, that's usually quite a juicy topic for newer traders I tend to find. So again, like anything in TradingView, go into here and search what you want. Say for instance, a common indicator would be like the EMA, exponential moving average. Now, all of the indicators you see underneath technicals like this are the default ones that TradingView themselves have created. Anything below community are ones that, well, the community has created and people have submitted their own, okay? So typically these ones for the standard, less bespoke indicators, you probably want to use the TradingView ones because you can rely on them. Once you have that indicator added to your chart, if you go up to the top left hand side, this is where all of your indicators will be. Okay, so for instance, we just added that EMA. You can toggle the visibility for it there on and off. You can click on that button for the settings, or just double click anywhere on the name, or go over to the indicator itself and double click and it will open the settings here. And again, you can customize it the exact same way you can with all of your tools, and just make sure you save down a template if you prefer. The other type of indicator will be ones that go in panels, and what I mean by that is, let's say we had an oscillator like RSI, okay, that should appear usually in the bottom left hand side, and these will be the default settings. Again, double click on it if you want to fully customize that and all that good stuff. Quick tip with this to help keep your charts clear is if you double click on your main chart, it will help those indicator panels to disappear, and you just double click again to make them reappear. Over here, if you click on this, it will move the pane up to the top of your chart, or you can move it back down, okay, or you can minimize it there or delete it. Again, the world is your oyster with this. You can overlay many of them and you can add and stack as many as you want. For instance, you might also use MACD, right, and I'll add these on here. The world is your oyster. So really, these are only the three indicators that I use. The first one is an inside bar indicator. So an inside bar is simply a candle that fails to break the previous high or low. So you can see here that this candle fails to break the previous candle's high or low, so it is colored in white. And I just simply use that to identify fractal highs and lows with the mechanical rules that I use for that. If you want more information, have a look at our market structure videos for that. The other one is a watermark that simply just puts this up here. Again, it does not help you with your trading in any way whatsoever. It's just some people like to have their trading rules written into here, and it will always appear there in the middle of your charts, which can be a bit useful. The other one is the Asian range. Okay, and what this will do is show me the Asian session, and this is something that I use as part of my analysis, and I will show you exactly how I use this with a trade example if you stick around to the end. Now, bar replay is a really useful function, so make sure you utilize it, because for the OG TradingView members, you're probably not watching this because it's a beginner video, of course, but the way that I used to have to backtest on TradingView was grab, let's say, a big black box like this, because obviously I couldn't hide any of the price action, and I used to have to move it candle by candle to try and see what was coming and draw my analysis on. It took forever and it was really glitchy. Like sometimes if I kind of moved my mouse over it, it would sometimes show the candles behind it, and yeah, it was just a nightmare. So you guys don't know how well you have it. Now, the other thing you can do with your replay trading is it will you can track trades as they go. So you can enter trades in here. Say you click buy and then you pay the trade out. You can add in your stop loss, right? Limit your risk, obviously. I'm just playing around with it here, but obviously you get a load of stats. It's a bit clunky. I don't really like it. There are better softwares out there at the moment. For instance, FX Replay. So check that out if you want a bit more of a more accurate backtesting software. But yeah, I prefer to just use bar replay manually, and I just track it with the risk reward tools like that, and then I'll put it into a spreadsheet. Alrighty, so now you've got all of those basics nailed down, I'm going to walk you through my exact daily process of how I use TradingView to trade the market every day. So because I primarily day trade and I only look at a few instruments, I have an individual layout for each instrument that I look at. So euro dollar is my main primary FX pair. Then I will use these tabs up the top. This is where I will trade the CFD for the DAX, so the German 40. And then I have my backup pairs with pound dollar and pound yen, okay? So for instance, this was a day back in 15th of January where I was looking at euro dollar, and what I'll do is I'll go to my daily chart and I'll have a quick outlook of what I'm expecting for my daily bias. And this candle has jumped ahead a little bit, but at the time of this date, we could see that price was failing to break below these lows. We had swept some old sell side liquidity to the left, okay, and we were starting to shoot up. So what I was looking for is some continued longs deeper into this supply zone, with the possibility that price may want to target this buy side liquidity, but keeping it simple, just looking for some continued bullish pressure if the lower time frames are continuing to show that bullish shine. So what I'll do is I'll annotate that up and explain that that's my outlook for that chart. Okay, again, remember, just adding in these little tools. I'll show you an example in a minute, but that's what I would have written on here on that text bubble, and it just helps me to keep my mind focused of exactly what I'm looking for throughout the trading session. Then I looked at the 4-hour chart. Okay, we can see that we are bearish. Okay, we've broken that low, but we are now currently forming the 4-hour swing pullback. So I'm simply looking to continue that and look for price to target at least up towards this daily and 4-hour supply zones as our first targets, with the potential that price may want to come with these equal highs. But again, not trying to have a crystal ball or second guess the market, following what's in front of me and looking for day trades up to around this region. Then last but not least, we have the M15 time frame. This is what I call my middle time frame, my main time frame that I use for my directional bias for the session. And this is the area where all of my trade ideas come from. So I trade M15 direction, and it has to be from an M15 POI, which is another word for a supply or demand zone, okay? So essentially what we're looking to trade is following the bullish M15 structure in line with playing that daily and 4-hour pullback. So we have that full alignment now to play the higher time frame pullback. Zoom in, this is the current structural range that I'm looking at, okay? This is my strong low here, because this low led to a break of structure and it formed through a sweep of liquidity, okay? So we know that this is likely backed by institutional involvement. This is where that demand entered the market in order to lead to that prior break of structure. So now we are looking for price to come back down into here to fill up those remaining unfilled orders and look for that next leg higher to target this week high and all of the buy side liquidity that will likely be resting above those highs here. Okay, so do you see how we've now quickly built a multi-time frame analysis picture story? This time frame is the main time frame that I use to execute those ideas. We have our directional bias. We've outlined the area in which I will look to time that directional bias, and I will look for my confirmations for once price gets into here. So what I'd be looking in this instance is for price to take the sell side liquidity below that Asia low. That's what that indicator marks out for me with that Asia range. Looking for price to come in, and then we can either look for entry straight away, wait for that shift, and then start to capture these higher lows to signal that the end of that pullback, and we're now ready to form that next leg higher. So once I've done my analysis, I will then post that and share that to our private members Discord. This is where we share our analysis before every session for all of the instruments. And here you can see, if I open it up, the analysis that I shared for that day. So let's just full screen that, and you can see here that I was looking for price to pull back in, give us that shift, and then look to target the highs all the way up towards that buy side liquidity. And if I start to play that out, you can see how this played out. We came down, mitigated that level of demand, and then we got our initial move to the target, came back to put into the next level of demand that broke that high, and ultimately eventually made its way up towards that next key level. I'll just put on the screen the trade that I caught. Now, a quick tip, if you also want to share those high quality screenshots for your own journal, for sharing it to your friends, or putting it in, when you're collecting your backtesting data, doing bar replay, what I do is I press Alt or Option and S, and that will take or copy a screenshot link. You see down here it says link to the chart image, copy to the clipboard, and then what I can do is paste that into my spreadsheet, my journal, or whatever it is that you use. Another way to do that is if you go up to the top right hand side and click on the camera button, and then you have all of the different options here. Now, in terms of execution, like I said earlier, I prefer to keep my charting and my execution separate. So I will chart on TradingView, but I will place my orders on MetaTrader. I like to keep it separate just because I've always done it that way. I don't want to accidentally, cancel an order or something. And also it helps to keep emotions low. I don't want to see my P&L fluctuating. I want to keep my analysis separate from that so I don't be tempted to do anything stupid, right? For those of you who, I'd prefer it, you want to keep it all in one place, you can connect your broker if they have the integration with TradingView down here. So have a look with these brokers, or you can open up a paper trading account if you want to demo trade first, okay, and log in. Once you have that set up and you want to place trades, you can either right click on here and go to trade and then go to create a new order, and this will open up the trading panel, and this is where you can place your price order and just set all of your, set your orders right. It's pretty self-explanatory. Or an easier way to do it is to place your risk to reward tool, right, where you want to enter the market, where you want to have your stop, and where you want to have that, and it will adjust. Okay, if you go create, it will create the order here and place all of those in there for you. Of course, you just need to make sure that you have your risk and everything set up correctly. Now, once you get to the end of the trading session or your trading day and you've done all your analysis, what I typically find is I can have a lot of annotations and a lot of things drawn on that is useful information that I want to keep, but I don't want it to distract me when I'm coming to my charts for my next trading session. I want to keep everything quite clear so I can have my neutral bias, but I want to save this information for when I do my full review at the end of the week. So a quick tip here is if you hold down Control or Command and then drag with your mouse over all of the drawing tools that you want to hide, it will select them. Now go over here and click on this button, and this will show you all of the drawings and objects that you have drawn on your chart, but specifically highlights the ones that we have just selected. Now, if I right click on this, okay, and I want to create a group of drawings, and let's say that, this was, if I double click in here and I click, Tuesday, maybe put the date and then just put London session, right? And now I can group all of those tools, press enter, and then if I go over to here, I can hit the visibility and I can hide all those drawings. So now what that means is if I do that each day or each session, when I then get to the end of the week and I want to journal and I want to review my whole week, I can go, okay, there's Tuesday, let me re-show the drawings, and then they're back on, and then I can use that to take screenshots or whatever it is I need for my journal and my reviews. And it's a really nice way to keep everything organized on there. So that wraps it up. Hopefully you have taken some value from that with all of the tips and tricks that I've used from almost a decade now of using this software. It obviously gave you a little bit of an insight and teaser as to how we trade. If you want a completely free, super in-depth, entire training course on this, have a look at this. All you need is your email and you'll get a completely free, super in-depth course sent and delivered to your email inbox. We cover everything from mechanical market structure, liquidity concepts, institutional supply and demand, creating an advanced trading plan, trading psychology, best way to pass prop firm challenges. We go into all of that. You can even see here that with Nina, she actually passed her phase 1 funding just from using this free stuff alone. So don't sleep on this, get in there, get some value from it. And if not, watch this next video and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.